And there are four main words we're going to look at. First, this line here that I'm highlighting, that's the transversal. And the definition of a transversal, right, is just a line that cuts through two other lines. So the blue highlighted line is the transversal, and then this guy would be a line and this guy would be a line. Okay? So the transversal cuts and makes 8 angles, and these numbers aren't really important of what number is what, but we have to decide, okay, what is corresponding? And it turns out that corresponding means the same spot. So if I come down here and I say, find an angle that's corresponding with 2, well, this angle and this angle are both on what we call the top right. They're in the corresponding spot of the transversal. So 2 and 6 would be corresponding. 1 and 5 would be corresponding. 4 and 8 would be corresponding. 3 and 7 would be corresponding. Okay? Alternate exterior. Okay? Exterior means on the outside, and alternate means on the opposite side of the transversal. So 2 and 8 would be alternate exteriors. 1 and 7 would be alternate exteriors. Okay? Alternate interiors, well, you're interior, so you're inside. So you're inside and alternate, meaning on the opposite side of the transversal. So 3 and 5 are alternate interior, 4 and 6 are alternate interior. And then consecutive interior, or what they call same side interior, well, they're your interior, and you're on your same side of the transversal. So 3 and 6 are same side, and 4 and 5 are same side. And then what I did down here is I just asked you questions. Who's corresponding with 2? You'd say 6. They're both on the top right. Alternate interior with 4? You'd say 6. Consecutive interior with 5 is 4. Alternate exterior with 1 is 7. Alternate exterior with 8 is 2. Consecutive interior with 3 is angle 6. Alternate interior with 5 is angle 3. And what's corresponding with number 8? Number 4. Okay? So you can kind of get these 4 words down. Now on the second page, what I had you do is I drew a transversal, and I drew lines that clearly weren't parallel. And I want you to remind yourself that what we talked about previously, if you look at the vertical angles, if you look at this 109 and this, why won't it give me a highlighter? That 109, of course they have to be 109. These 4 angles have nothing to do with this line. That line doesn't even have to be there. 109 and 109 have to be the same. They're vertical. 71 and 71 have to be congruent. They have to be the same measure. They're vertical. These 4 themselves have nothing to do with this line down here. Okay? So we know that vertical angles are congruent. We also know that 2 angles like these top 2 form a line, and we call them a linear pair, and they have to be supplements, meaning if you add them together, you get 180. Have to be. Now, if you look at corresponding angles, like if you looked at this one compared to this one, are they the same? No, they're not the same. These lines aren't parallel, so they don't intersect the transversal. Remember, this guy is the transversal. They don't intersect the transversal in the same way, so they're not going to have the same angles relative to it. Only if the lines are parallel can we draw conclusions. Now this right here, remember, vertical are always congruent, and 2 angles that form a line are always linear pair. However, the big idea, since these lines aren't parallel, there's no congruent relationships between the top 4 angles and the bottom 4 angles. They basically have nothing to do with each other. Now this one, I tried to draw it so the 2 lines, this line and this line, were in fact parallel. If the lines are parallel, there actually are 4 things we can say. You can see corresponding angles are congruent, alternate exteriors are congruent, alternate interiors are congruent, and it turns out that consecutive interiors are supplements. 101 and 79, 79 and 101. Again, only if these 2 lines are parallel. And that's what I kind of want you to say here. Okay, these symbols right there, that symbol is, if you see that, that's the the test or the quiz telling you that those lines are parallel. Because if the lines are parallel, we know these 4 facts. These are huge. They're going to pop up all the time. For a transversal, if the lines are parallel, corresponding angles are congruent. Alternate exteriors are congruent. Alternate interiors are congruent. And consecutives are supplements. We know the blue is true as long as they're parallel. If the lines aren't parallel, then that's not true. And actually, we can go the other direction, which is called a biconditional. If you can tell me that any one of these 4 is true, then you know the lines are parallel. And again, we haven't got into a lot of proofs and logic, but one of them is saying if the lines are parallel, then the blue is true. This is true. But I also can say that if this is true, then the lines are parallel. So it's a way to prove lines are parallel by showing me that any one of these 4 things is true. And that'll end up being what they call a biconditional, which is like a double arrow. And in math, you might see if and only if. It means both directions. If parallel, then blue. If blue, then parallel. And not all things in life, go both directions. Okay? And so we'll continue to talk about parallel lines and what they all mean.